introduction. I don't think I've ever been introduced before like that. That was amazing. Threw me off guard. Now I got to actually talk. Look, guys, it's great to be here. And one thing I think you said that was really important, going over those numbers, is I know there's a lot of rate increases in our industry today. And I've been doing this a long time and work with a lot of people today. I'm going to tell you right now is like one of the best times ever, because the rate increases that we're seeing today, they're pretty much across the board. It's not like, your company, like Farmers, just has this issue that's isolated to them. Everybody's dealing with this stuff because of inflation. So there's so much more opportunity. The market's being stirred up. There's a lot of people that are willing to shop and talk and have conversations. So you got to be out there and take advantage of that. And I think that the best way to do that, to scale your agency, is duplicating yourself, right? So that's what I want to talk to you about for a few minutes this morning, is just how you scale your book, how you scale your business by duplicating yourself, delegating that work, and getting people to, to help you with quote volume and grow. So I think probably the scariest thing, or the thing that makes people the most nervous about staff, is, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna spend all this money on somebody, and what if they don't work out, right? What if I hire them and then 2 months in, 3 months in, 6 months in, they quit, or I have to fire them? And how do I get around all that? How do I make sure this is going to be a successful hire? And frankly, I did the exact same thing for a long period of time. My whole hiring process was, if they could fog a mirror and would take my terrible comp plan, I would hire them and throw them in the deep end of the pool. And, if they drown, they drown. And if they did, I blamed it on them. And that didn't work very well. You have to have more structure to that. You have to have a process, and there's got to be some accountability, both for you, for them. There's got to be a lot going on here to make sure that this is going to be a good hire. And maybe the fundamental way to look at it would be very much like if you signed up with a lead company. If you sign up with a lead company and they're going to promise you so many leads a day, and they're going to have this close rate, and they're going to charge you $150, every day you're getting these leads, how many days would go by with 0 sales before you would cut that lead vendor off? It probably wouldn't take you very long. You'd probably be like, look, this is not working. I need to do something different. We got to change this up. And I think you need to look at staff the same way. And I think sometimes people, they feel like maybe that's kind of cold or harsh or whatever. But look, guys, they either can perform or they can't. And the sooner you can figure out whether they're going to be able to perform or not, the better off you're going to be. If I'm recruiting Todd to be the quarterback of my football team, and we're on this Zoom meeting, and he tells me he can throw the ball 65 yards on a rope and hit a trash can, the first day he comes to the field, I'm just going to give him football and see if he can actually do it or not. And if he throws it 15 yards and it looks like a wounded duck, then we're done, right? So the sooner you can figure this out with people, the better. Don't wait. Don't have this like hope or wait and see approach, or they'll get better, or we'll see how things go. It's like, no, you need some expectations. You need some accountability. You need to process. So I think all that starts during the interview, where you're talking about the things that they're going to have to do. You're talking about their activity. You're talking about their requirements, and there's a big difference between the standard and requirement they've got to meet and their actual goal. So, the goal is what they want to accomplish. So when I'm talking to somebody and I want to find out what their financial why is, whether they want to buy a house or, buy a car, or get out of debt, that's their goal. And we're definitely going to try to make that happen. That's going to be the focus of all of our conversations and what we do to hold them accountable. But at the same time, I'm going to communicate, this is the minimum. Like, you have to do this or this is not going to work out. And we say it kind of in a way like, we're going to focus on your goal. Just so you know, though, if you can't get this, it's probably not going to be a good fit. But if you're not doing that, probably going to make enough money anyways. And, that hopefully we don't have to talk about that. But I want to make it clear that there's a requirement when they start, right? So during the interview, this is your opportunity to kind of like peel back the layers of the onion and figure out if this person's going to work for you or not. And we have a whole process, and anybody that wants it, I'll be glad to share it with you guys, as far as our interview process and the things that we ask in there to kind of vet people. But a couple of the things that probably help us the most, we're really big on selling on value, right? Selling on coverage, leading with liability, not just hoping that we're $8 a month cheaper on their car insurance and we can get them to switch. No, we want to like create a sense of urgency to get somebody to move over and come do business with us because their coverage isn't what they need. We have the solution to that problem, and here it is, right? And we're fixing this. So we create a sense of urgency with this talk path, and really we're helping them. We're getting them what they really truly need to protect themselves, protect their family. Well, we like to have that same conversation with someone we're interviewing. So we'll literally ask them who they have their insurance with, what are their liability limits, take them through the whole process to see what kind of reaction we get. So if I take them through all that, and it's like talking to that wall and there's nothing there, that tells me how hard it's going to be to train them, to coach them, to get them to buy into this whole idea of leading with liability, selling on value, right? So that's one thing. I want them to have a strong reaction at the end, like, man, I've never heard that before. No one's ever said it like that. Maybe I should get an umbrella policy. I want them to have that kind of reaction. And when we have that, then we know, all right, now they're buying into this. Now this makes sense, and we probably have pretty good candidates and we can coach, right? The second thing is I want to know how motivated they are. I want to ask them, what is your financial why? What do you want to do with your money? Like specifically, what do you want to do, with the money that you make? What gets you up every day and drives you? And look, if they have nothing, if they just say like, well, I just want something to do, or I've been out of the workforce for a while and I want to get back in there. If there's nothing that motivates them, I'm not saying you don't hire them, but that tells you an awful lot how hard it's going to be to get them to do what you want done, to motivate them in that moment, in that month, that week, whatever, where you're trying to accomplish certain things. So we spend some time and go through those. And I'm looking for somebody. And I'll give you an example. The last guy that I was really involved with, he was a chef. And this guy that I was involved in hiring, he was a chef at a restaurant that closed down for COVID. And when he went back, they opened back up. Nobody else would come back to work. So the restaurant just went out of business. And he came in, he was looking for something. Personable guy, all that, right? So we go through the whole liability conversation. We get done with that. His name was Cam. And Cam was like, man, I've never heard that before. He's like, it literally says, maybe I need to get an umbrella, right? Like he's all about it. He buys into it. He understands it. Makes sense to him. And when we get to the financial why, he's like, you know what? I would love to be able to just save enough money where I could open up my own restaurant one day. That's what I would really like to do. So I know the guy's coachable. I know he's got a goal. Seemed to have pretty good, good personality. All the like intangibles are there. And we take him through this process, which I'll explain here in a second with you guys, of what's required. And the first week, our requirement is 10 policies, 10 items. The very first week, he wrote 27, and 10 of the 27 were umbrellas, right? So he's bought into it. He's getting it. He's understanding it. He worked for us for about 2 years, 19 months, and saved enough money to go open up his own restaurant, right? That's a successful hire. Not everybody has to stay with you for 10 years. Okay. I did this for almost 30 years. I can probably count on one hand the number of people stayed with me longer than 5. You can get a lot of work out of people over 2, 3, 4 years. So if you bring somebody in and you help them accomplish some goals, and it could be to do something else, it could be to have another business, to own their own agency, whatever, and you're able to take them through that and it works out, that's a successful hire. So that's just an example. And I want to share my screen and share with you guys a couple of things. So like this, hopefully you can see this. This is the first thing that we go over, all right? And this is a whole process, but I want you to focus on this part right here in the middle. We have weekly goals, okay? And items in the Allstate world, that's policies in the farmer's world. We have weekly goals. Now, your goals may not be this high. It may not be 10, okay, for the first week, but you need to have a goal. If your goal is 0, where you don't have a goal, that's probably what they're going to do. They're going to do 0. We need to have something that creates a sense of urgency that explains to them, look, you got to come out of the box, go. We got to get work. We got to get to work. We got to start writing business, okay? And if you look, it goes 10 the first week, then 6, 7, 8. So why does it go down after the first week? Because when they first come on, we require them to bring 25 quote sheets with them. And those are typically going to be their friends, their family, people they know, people give them a little bit of, a little bit of benefit of the doubt, maybe a little bit of extra time if they're slow getting back to them, whatever. They may go through that list pretty quickly. And then the second week, now maybe they're working still a few of those, but maybe they're now working our win backs, our requotes, right? Some other lists. So we give them a little bit of a break. It goes from 10 to 6, then 7, then 8. And then you see what happens in the second, the third month, and the fourth month. The point is we have requirements, we have standards, we have something that they know that they've got to make this happen. And if they don't, that they're not going to be here. Now, our goal of 10 the first week, if they come in, it's Friday afternoon, they started on Monday and they have 8, but they have a great attitude and they got some things in the works. It's looking pretty good. Would we give them a little benefit of the doubt? Maybe give them extra time? Yeah, we probably would. But if the goal is 10 and they have 1 on Friday morning and it was a renter's policy that just kind of dropped in their lap and they haven't done anything with those quote sheets and there's no sign of it, we're just going to cut them. We're just going to get rid of them. And that way I'm not wasting time on somebody that's never going to work out. Now, some of you may think, man, that's pretty cold. Like, people need time. No, they don't. No, they don't. You can get somebody in and get them on the phone and find out pretty quickly, can this person pick up the phone and call somebody? Okay. And maybe you're helping them. Maybe you're helping them to close some deals. Maybe you're helping them to explain coverages. That's fine. But I want to see, do they have the ability to generate that business their very first week or not? Okay. That's really what we're trying to accomplish. They get through the first week, they get through the second week, we're probably going to, that person's probably going to work out. Typically what happens when you have a requirement, and your requirement, maybe it's 5, maybe you do way better than we do, maybe yours is 20. But when you have a requirement in place, usually by that Tuesday or Wednesday, you're going to know, you're going to be able to tell if this person's on track to what they need to hit or not, and whether or not you're going to be able to keep them. And I'm telling you, that one little tweak that we made, we did this years ago, it's literally saved me thousands and thousands of dollars, lots of time, right? It's helped us with our culture because we don't have people that hang around and hang around and hang around. And then you're losing sleep. What do I do with this person? How am I going to get rid of all this stuff? You get rid of all that. And it's black and white. There's not a lot of gray. Either they hit it or they don't. And if they hit it, then you develop them. You keep working with them. You stay in touch with them and make sure you're doing what you need to do to support them, right? But having these requirements from the very beginning, that's going to help you tremendously. That's going to make a big, big difference. So I wanted to share that with you. And I'll be glad if you want any of these documents I'll show you, let me know, and I'll be glad to send them to you. So that's the first part, is we got to come out of the gate, and make sure they understand, look, these are things that you got to do. Then the second thing, and I'll share my screen with you on this as well. The second thing is, going forward, we need to have some minimum expectations on activity. And let me pull this document up. Hang on one second. Hopefully. Okay, you see this one? All right. So this is our pyramid of minimum expectations. Maybe you've seen something like this before. It's all top down. And again, when you guys see items, just remember that's policies. So what we're looking for, this is someone that's gotten through the first 3 months. Okay, we're looking for minimum expectations based off their activity levels, with production being the primary goal. So the way this works is, again, it's top down. So I'm looking for 2 items, 2 policies every day. Okay, in an 8-hour day, I mean, it's 2. That's what we're looking for. I think that's a reasonable goal. Yours might be lower, might be higher. Have a goal though. Ours is 2. If they had the 2, I didn't really care what else they did with their day. I really did. It didn't matter how many quotes, how many phone calls that they made. But if they didn't have their 2, then I looked at quotes. Okay, how many quotes do you have? I needed 10. If you got 10 quotes and you're not writing 2 items, then there's a problem. There's something we need to work on when it comes to the close. Something going on there, there's an issue, and we can help you get better. All right. If they don't have the 10 quotes, then we look for the phone calls. Looking for at least 80 phone calls. If you got 80 phone calls, you're not getting 10 quotes, something going on in those calls, that's a problem that we need to work on and help you get better, to get to that point where you're actually driving quote volume. But if you're just not making the calls, if you can't make 80 calls in a day in 8 hours, then that's just effort. And we have a problem with that. So again, expectations, accountability, controlling what you can control when it comes to their effort, that's huge. You've got to have things in place. You can't just have them come in and just like do the best that they can. That's going to be really difficult. That's going to be a very long shot on somebody being successful. So I want to have as much control over what they're doing as possible. Again, I want black and white. I don't want a lot of gray. All right. And then the other thing, I want to share this with you guys as well, because I think this is really important. When you bring somebody on, when you first start talking to them, this is a commission calculator, compensation calculator that we use. Okay. Basically what it does, we can put at the bottom, we can put in their salary, we can put in what the average premium per policy per item is, and we can calculate based off our comp plan what they have to do to reach certain levels of compensation. Okay, over on the far right, you can see this. This is using our comp plan. All right, and yours may need to be tweaked a little bit based off how you pay or what your average premium is, whatever. But this illustration to show somebody, look, here's what you've got to do to make this amount of money. This is huge. A lot of times, especially in this labor market today, it's so hard to get somebody to come and do what we do because most people pay salary plus commission, right? And you focus on the salary, or at least you say salary plus commission, and that's what they focus on. That's what they're thinking about. You need to illustrate the whole thing to them. You need to show them what the true opportunity is and what they would have to do to make that happen, and actually be able to illustrate, in real money, this is the way this works. And you give them the whole opportunity. Okay. And now they can start to visualize in their mind the way this works and how they're going to make that money and how they're going to get paid. So when they're comparing your opportunity to the one down the street that maybe doesn't require a license or all the training or the different things that we've got to do for them to be successful, now they can look at this opportunity as much better than what maybe the guy down the street has to offer. So being able to illustrate this and show it to somebody while you're interviewing them, that's huge. So look, I'm just kind of trying to show and share with you guys just some key points when you bring somebody on, how you make them successful. And of course, there's a lot of other things. You got to train them. There's got to be a lot of other elements to this to get them to where they need to be, to motivate them and be a good leader and making sure that they accomplish the things that they want to accomplish. But to me, the key thing when I work with a lot of agencies one-on-one and coach them through different things that they're struggling with. When it comes to staff, the biggest problem that most people have is they just don't have any accountability. Is there's no requirements. They just start them off, and their strategy is hope. It's like, I just hope they work out. And I kind of laugh about that because I used to do the exact same thing. And it just does not work. It's a revolving door of problems. And then what it does is it makes you so apprehensive about hiring somebody in the future because you think about that person that didn't work out last time. Oh, they were here for 6 months, cost me all that money, and they didn't do anything. Well, let's fix that. Let's take a process and apply it to these people going forward where we require them to do certain things. And if they don't do these things, they don't stay here. No different than if you had a manufacturing facility, right? You hire somebody to work on the line at a manufacturing facility, and there's 3 steps they got to do every day. Well, if they only did 2 of the 3 steps, you don't keep them, right? You get rid of them. Right? That person didn't do their job. You need to have that same level of effort and structure and accountability with the team that you bring on. And I get it. I understand there's a lot of stuff to learn with insurance, right? There's a lot of things you got to teach, and over time they got to pick up. But the fundamental part of being able to pick up the phone, get through pushback. I'll give you an example. When we require the 25 quote sheets and they come in, we divide those quote sheets up, right? These leads are great. These are okay. These are terrible. And we start with the ones we feel like are really good, right? And we say, okay, I need you to call this person and get the rest of this information because they don't have it all. They've just got maybe some basic stuff. If I start getting pushback, they start, well, they said it wasn't going to be a good time to call them today, or I don't really know that person well enough to call them back, or I need to call them next Thursday. And then you go to the next lead and it's the same thing. And the next lead's the same thing. Or maybe they do get somebody on the phone and you can just tell they just they can't get through anything. That helps you evaluate really quickly, right? On the other hand, you say, hey, let's call this person. They call them. It's a great conversation. They get the rest of the information. Maybe you have to explain coverage. Maybe you have to actually bind, but they're the ones that did all the work, right? They're showing you they have the ability to do this. Now you just got to teach them some of the things on the insurance side. That's a good candidate. That's someone who's probably going to work out. And again, you're going through all this during the interview. You're talking about, what they're going to have to do during the interview. You're making sure it's all clear. There's not going to be any surprises if it doesn't work out, because that's how we have staffed for years. That's how we train people. That's how we work with people to be able to do the same thing, is have structure, have a process, have some accountability in place. Don't just hire and hope. Have something, a number in mind. And that's what the first thing that I would do if I was you, is figure out, what do they need to do to be successful? What do they need to do to be profitable? What's that number look like on a monthly basis for that person to work out for you economically? And then let's break that down weekly, and let's start applying that standard to these people, right? Then you can use the pyramids of expectations in terms of accountability on the activity levels to hold them responsible to that every day. But you got to start off with something that makes sense for you over the long term. Don't just hire and throw them in the deep end of the pool like I used to do. And then the other thing, and I'll stop and we can break, and whether we do Q&A, go to Todd or whatever. The other thing is own this, guys. When someone doesn't work out, that's not necessarily on them. You're the one that hired them. You're the one that trained them. Everything that happens in that agency, you either train or you tolerate. So when they don't work out, it's on you, and you need to own that. And what I mean by that is when they don't work out, think back, what could I have done different? How could I have either kept from hiring that person altogether or made sure they were going to be successful, and not blame them, because it's not their fault. You're the one that said they were going to work out, right? So own it, and then just learn from it and understand, hey, the more people that I hire and the more people I work with, and the better and better I get at this process, the more successful I'm going to be on building my staff and duplicating myself. And that's how I'm going to grow. And that's how I'm going to scale. And that's how I'm going to get to the things that you hopefully eventually you want to accomplish with your business. But you got to have a process. So hopefully some of these things have helped you a little bit. I don't know what we're going to do now. If we're going to do Q&A or go to Todd, but I'll turn it back over. And if you guys have any questions, or if you want any of the stuff that I share with you today, let me know, and I'll be glad to get all these documents out, and hopefully you can use them as well.
Awesome. Great. Lot of good content there. We do have some questions. You mind if we take them now, Todd?
Well, yeah, it looks like a lot of them are around marketing. So we can hit them along with a lot I'm going to go over.
Okay, perfect. I guess a couple of questions for Craig. I know you require the 25 quote sheets when they come in. Do you require that of all staff or just producers?
Just producers, just somebody that's going to be in a production role. I mean, service, when they're CSRs, we don't really look at that as their ability to generate. We're looking at their ability to cross sell and do different functions. So it's not the same. When I'm looking at a producer, someone's going to come in and actually produce business. Those are the people that 25 is a mandatory requirement. And if they come in with 23 or 24, then they don't start. We're done. Setting that standard that up front, I need to hold them accountable to that and show them we're serious about that. So it's just for the producers.
Yep. Awesome. Another question. So as far as them starting out that week one, do you have like a training or onboarding period before that first week where they have to produce? Does that include licensing? What does that look like for them to be able to deliver that type of?
Yeah, good question. I think, like the first week, they're really basically like a glorified telemarketer. Okay. We got these quote sheets. They're calling these people, they're gathering the rest of information, and we're evaluating them. We're trying to figure out, does this person have what it takes or not? Once we get through, let's say they get through that first, like Cam, he got through that first week and he wrote 27. There's no doubt this guy, he's going to work out. So then we get him through binding authority. We start teaching him all the things that are necessary for him to understand when it comes to insurance, and like at Allstate, if you don't have binding authority, then they consider that an unlicensed person. So anywhere in that first week, when we get to the point where it's time to talk coverage, time to bind, then someone else would jump in and take over. And that's fine. Again, they don't have to know everything to be able to produce. Okay. They don't. Just like the quarterback on a football team, he doesn't have to know the whole playbook. You can hand him the football and figure out whether the guy can throw the ball, right? So once we know they've got these abilities, then we start teaching the rest of it. We get them through whatever requirements are still outstanding for the company. But I don't want to do that all on the front end. I don't want to spend 2 or 3 weeks getting somebody through all these things and then find out, they're not any good, and I just waste all this time and money. So I want to bring them in basically like a telemarketer and see, did they have the ability to do this job or not? Hold them accountable to those requirements. And if they make that and go through that, then great. Then we'll work with them and get them through the other things that are outstanding.
So you don't require license before they start day one?
Yes, that's part. Yeah, they have to have a license before they start with us. Any licensed position that I'm hiring for, we require a license before they start. They have to have that. I never want to hire anybody, because you're going to waste a lot of time hiring people that don't have license. They come in, they hope they're going to get it, they don't. The only exception to that where, especially those of you maybe have a little bit bigger team, you get 3, 4, 5 producers in there. You could hire a sales assistant. You could hire someone that comes in that assists the producers with non-licensed activities to free their time up, and then hopefully have a plan in place for that sales assistant to then get their license, and that can provide a bench for you, so to speak, for producers in the future. But when I'm hiring a producer, I need someone to come in and actually produce. They have to have a license as a requirement before they start.
And I saw a bunch of people asking for the docs. I'll have Nick and Robin follow up with you guys.
Yeah, I'll get all that to you. That's no problem.
We'll share that out along with your guys' links.
Awesome. I think the rest of the questions are pertaining to marketing and leads and lead generation and resources. So I guess that's a good segue into Todd and what you have to offer.
Awesome. Appreciate it. You know, the thing about marketing I wanted to bring up is if I looked at all the thousands and thousands of agents that I've talked to over the last few years, no matter what company they're with, you have really good leaders who can manage people well, very motivational. But if they don't know how to market, they don't last very long in this business, right? We are a new business, new household, sales-oriented business, right? We don't get to control rates. We don't get to, and if we did, we'd go broke. You know, Craig mentioned earlier about inflation and how rates are going crazy. You know, if you think about it, those rates aren't going to go backwards. I've never seen them go backwards. So everybody got a pay increase, right? We all love that saying, right? Oh, you got a pay increase, but what about retention? You know, the thing is that right now, back in my think tank group in February, I made a bold post, like all bold letters. I said, you better get ready to start ramping up your marketing because it's going to get wild. And we are in that shakeup type of market where everyone is taking big rate increases. And so I had your district send me over closing ratios. And one of the things that I would say is you guys are in an absolute prime market as far as your closing ratios go versus everywhere else that I'm seeing. And you have really decent home premiums. So it's mind-boggling to me that you guys have, you know, just to kind of give you an idea, I break out my marketing into 2 different segments. I have low intent, so people that internet leads, they're getting their shopping rates. They have leads coming from, or quotes coming from all different angles. So those are low intent, meaning it's hard to value pitch them, and high intent, meaning maybe it's a referral or somebody that you know. Right now, your low intent leads are averaging about 10% closing ratios, and your high intent are about 50%. So, you know, that's right. If I had to go down to the Sun Belt where we're seeing 50%, maybe Dallas Fort Worth, we're seeing 50% rate increases. You know, our low end, it's about half. Low intent is about 4 to 5. High intent is about 25. So what that tells me is that you guys are in a very good position as far as farmers pricing is concerned to really take advantage of marketing. Okay. So especially with that new business rates that you're seeing. So let's go into like what type of marketing. And one of the things that I always bring up before I get into marketing spend is make sure that you have your assembly line set up properly. And what I mean by that is if you're going to go out and spend $5,000 on internet leads, you need to make sure that you have written down a strategy to work those. They're going to go into this sales system. We're going to use this dialer. Like you need to think through, how am I going to be extremely efficient in these leads? The lower the intent, the more efficient you have to be in your follow-up. And I'll give you some examples, like with internet leads. It doesn't matter where you buy them from, by the way. What really matters is that you're working them properly. And you get refunds on the ones that suck, right? But let's use EverQuote and Quote Wizard because they're cost share. You should definitely be taking advantage of cost share like crazy. But with, let's say I was buying 1,000 EverQuote leads, you want to make sure that you have those going into an automation system. So like Agency MVP, it sends out an immediate text message right when it hits because you have TCPA approval. And your messaging has to be perfect. You cannot spam these people. They're getting spammed everywhere. So you have to have really good contact methods on and cadences when you're working these leads and automation built in. The other part of that is you got to make sure you're not overwhelming the existing team that you have. I see all the time where I have agents buying, 10 leads a day for a producer. They don't have a marketer helping that producer. And so essentially you turn a producer into a telemarketer chasing low intent leads. So all their time is spent chasing people versus closing people. So it's really that mindset and setup is what's really critical in making any type of lead system work. So EverQuote, Quote Wizard, the other thing that are really important about your low intent leads, your marketing, is making sure that you're leading with the most competitive line of business that you offer. So for example, if you guys have a really good closing ratio on homes versus auto, then you need to focus on home leads or auto, but the filter must be a homeowner, right? You've got to lead anytime you're going with low intent leads, you've got to make sure it's always leading with the line of business that's most competitive. That's your only shot at those. And then your follow-up, that's where, over half of our new business sales were from leads that were over 18 months old. So something extremely important about your follow-up system with your marketing is tracking things like teenagers aging out of the household. A lot of these people shopping on internet leads is because they have a teenager and all of a sudden their rates tripled. So you might not close it today, but you are buying data. That's the most important thing about your follow-up system and your marketing is you've got to cultivate all the dollars that you spend in marketing. You've got to make sure that you're cultivating that and growing those households and relationships over time. You might not close it today, but that $5 lead you bought yesterday, in 2 years, you might close a $14,000 premium household, right? Just because you kept up with it and you got it at the right time and you stole them away from the other carrier midterm when they should have rewrote it or re-rated it because a teenager fell out or a claim fell off or whatever the case may be. Is most agents waste all of their money in marketing because of the lack of proper follow-up in systems, right? So low intent leads, I would also say that if you're going to do high volume, like internet leads, using somebody like a sales assistant that Craig brought up is extremely important to me and how my organization was set up. I would have my producers, and when I had too many leads flowing in, I would then hire in, I called them my contact manager or my producer assistant, whatever you want to call them, but they're basically like a glorified telemarketer. They've got to prove that they can convert these low intent leads into sales pitches, quotes for my producers. Once they prove that they can do that and that they have the skill set and they get licensed and then they get 25 of their own quote sheets, then they can then transition to a producer. But the whole point is with low intent leads, you can't have your good salespeople being telemarketers. And that's with low intent leads. I want to make sure I'm clear on that. Because now all you're doing is overwhelming them with volume instead of closing new business. All right. And that setup and that structure is really important. I have yet to run into a good internet lead company, and I say that jokingly. They all suck. Some suck less than others. What I would caution you on internet leads is make sure the internet lead company you're buying from, there's a lot of them popping up out there. And the reason why they're popping up is you have independent brokerages, like independent agent brokerages, starting their own internet lead companies so that they can filter the crap back to the agent. Things they don't want to use, they'll sell those internet leads to agents buying from their company. So make sure if you're buying internet leads, the first question I have to those salespeople that are trying to sell me their leads is, do you guys also own an independent brokerage? If the answer is yes, nope, see you later. I'm not talking to you. I'm a captive agent. I'm not dealing with that. But your ones that are inside the marketing store that are kosher that you should be using, they don't have any. So EverQuote, Quote Wizard, they don't have any independent brokerages. Other types of, I actually want to back up just a little bit because we talked about hiring and staffing at the beginning. And one of the questions was, where are they getting the leads from when you hire somebody in? I see this constantly with agents. Most of us, I should say, not all, most of us were salespeople that could fog that mirror that started up an agency, but we don't know how to run a business. We've never started or built an empire, right? Whatever your goal is. And so what's important is that you're spending money in the right order. Okay. If you are questioning where you're going to get leads from or how you're going to support a salesperson that's coming in, you don't have your marketing system set up. You don't have that marketing department set up in your organization. And so whenever I hear those questions, I'm like, okay, well, if you had a marketing department set up and you're hiring in a producer, then you're going to have a ton of leads, just like that sales assistant would have worked, these older leads that you need to re-engage. That new salesperson could easily work those older leads. You just have to set them up and figure out whatever that logistics is. But you should have a way to help your incoming new hires in order to be successful and get those quote sheets if you wanted to do that sales assistant role, whatever the case may be. But you want to make sure that you're spending money in the right order. Hiring a producer isn't going to solve your sales problem if you have a marketing problem. Make sense? So if you're not generating enough marketing today to support your current sales staff today, you have a marketing problem. And you need to fix that problem before you chase dollars or hope with sales and hiring producers. You're kind of the cart before the horse, right? And the good thing about this business is I can literally call EverQuote and start getting thousands of leads tomorrow if I wanted to. They'd be giddy as hell, right? You can crank on your marketing. You just have to make sure you set up the pipeline, the automation, the structure of it, who's calling who. Are my good salespeople just closing? Do I have somebody who's marketing to them? You got to make sure that structure and that follow-up setup system is there before you crank on low intent leads. Now, other types of leads, your higher intent leads, where you're definitely in a good rate cycle to get referrals. I by no means am good at referrals. Craig is the master at building a referral system. And the reason why I feel like I wasn't very good at it is I like to control my own destiny, and I hate asking people like mortgage brokers for referrals. I'd rather set up those systems where I can just use a dial and turn it on and off. But you're in an area where your high intent leads, your referrals are getting almost 50% closing ratios. Like I would be hitting up as many referrals and getting my team, especially in-house team, with scripts. And I know CWC, Craig has some good scripts on getting referrals from people. But getting those referrals in your area is huge, huge. I would put promotions in place in your office. I would figure out, how are we asking our customers? How are we asking people we just closed? How are we going to get referrals? Because I know that those closing ratios are huge for those, because if you think about it, they're not really shopping, but at the same time, everyone's taking rate. So in the back of those people's minds, they're probably shopping, if not today, tomorrow. So referrals are going to be really big for you guys. And then your other things like direct mail, especially in your area, is big. Direct mail is, you can do it yourself in office. It's just, if any of you guys are doing any kind of handwriting in your own office, I would recommend you stop immediately. You'll never see a return. Just never. If you look at how much it costs for a payroll just to work those, anytime you get into direct mail, you have to do high volume, because you have months that are low contact rate months. Like, I'll give you an example. In June was our worst contact rate month ever. And I was freaking out looking at numbers, going, what the hell's going on? And then all of a sudden, I love watching the stock market. But I saw that travel was out of this world in June. And so if you think about it, well, there's a reason why direct mail didn't work in June. Everybody's out of their house. They're out traveling. They're post-COVID, getting out. But July was one of our biggest months. So direct mail, all those people that they got calls or should have called in June, yet they were traveling, started calling in July. And August was also another big month. Right. So what you got to do with direct mail is be able to cash flow. That's the biggest problem that I see with a lot of agents. is they get into direct mail and hope that they're going to cash flow within the first 90 days. And it's very unrealistic to cash, especially it depends on when you start. If you started direct mail in December, good luck. You're probably not going to cash flow until April. So you've got to be very consistent with direct mail because of that contact rate wave flow that happens. But it's been my bread and butter, and it's how I scaled my agency for the last 5 years. So we doubled in size, and I went from low intent leads like internet leads strictly to direct mail, only because of how easy it was for us to scale off of those with the double bonus, the 100% bonus on new business. And I also had to make sure, like using CWC, I had to make sure my producers were rock stars, because I wouldn't give my high intent leads because of how expensive they are. I would never give a high intent lead to somebody who's not one of your rock stars in your office. In fact, you can use those as kind of carrots on a stick. So if you have, let's say, 3 producers and one of them's a rock star and the other 2 are kind of straggling, you can put a minimum production requirement in order to get direct mail phone calls. Like, you've got to prove that you can close before you're going to touch one of these high intent, expensive leads that I'm buying. The other thing with direct mail and internet leads is if you're not tracking and looking at what's your best closing ratio for home and auto you're really not targeting properly on how and where to spend your money, where to scale and send your money is what I usually say. So for example, in my area, State Farm and a couple of independent carriers mispriced the market in some zip codes. And so there was some zip codes, they just stopped writing new business, and other zip codes, they took 100% rate increases. Because I was tracking that, I saw some anomalies like, oh my gosh, my auto insurance, I'm crushing it in this zip code for preferred customers. So what I did is I went back to my marketing systems and I said, okay, their income has to be over 100,000, and I'm going to focus on auto insurance leads. And I went in and I just cranked up as many auto leads as I could and sent my direct mail to anybody making over 100,000 using my data filters that I have when I buy leads. But that's the kind of things that I did to make sure that I was being as surgical as I possibly could in sending out and working my marketing. I think we're coming up on some time here. So hopefully that gave you some brain juices flowing. Let's do some Q&A, just because marketing is such a broad topic. I kind of want to answer some questions.
Hey, Todd, as far as your direct mail marketing goes, are you sending multiple letters through a period of time to the same households? Or are you doing 1 letter per household a month, or what's kind of your cadence typically?
Yep, good question. Right now I'm doing biannual because people are shopping their auto insurance and canceling their home midterm. So I'm sending out X dates. Like if somebody's X date, it says on our lead system, was in December, then we're sending out June and December. So we'll hit them twice in a year. But once this rate cycle kind of shakeup is over, then I really just focus on the X date and only hit them once a year.
Nice. How much do you typically, like, what's a good marketing budget for the average agent to allocate towards buying leads versus doing other marketing activities? Is there like a rule of thumb that you use?
Well, yeah, with internet leads, the rule of thumb is how many are we able to contact that internet lead over the 14 days and not overwhelm it. It's kind of just noticing, am I overwhelming my team? And they have to really kind of speak up as well, because you want to make sure you turn down your volume if your sales assistant, your contact manager, whoever isn't able to contact all the leads that they're supposed to be contacting. That's really where I see a lot of danger happen with internet leads, is people just crank it on hardcore, and then so many leads don't go through the proper workflows, don't get contacted like they do, don't get follow-up set up like they should, and it's just a mess. With my more expensive leads, So that I don't really have a budget in mind per person on that. It's more of a what volume are my systems, and I'm always trying to make that more efficient so that I can increase my volume. With my direct mail, I usually say about 5,000 mail pieces per rock star in your office per producer. That's kind of the golden number of getting enough contacts per month in order to make that work. And so my budget on that direct mail side is anywhere from 2,500 to 3,000 a month on direct mail per producer. And what I've found is if I didn't hit bonus, that wouldn't be worth it. But when I hit bonus, you know, I'm definitely doing okay. So.
Other questions? I was gonna ask what the volume, but you just said that. So.
Go ahead and load up the chat with additional questions. We'll keep it moving as we think of some more here on our end.
Does MVP do mail?
Does MVP do direct mailers?
Nope. So MVP tracks your zip codes, your closing ratios, and your ROI on lead sources. So it has reports, but Smarketing Mail is my company that I do direct mail. So we help hundreds of agents across the country send out direct mail through smarketingmail.com.
Awesome. We'll include that link as well when we send out the documents for everyone.
Yeah, I'll set, and we just released a new website. Hopefully it's working. You guys can go see if you can crash it. But we have a map that shows what zip codes are available because it is exclusive zip codes per letter for agents.
Nice. And the website's there in the notes. If you guys want to grab it, we'll put it in the recap email as well. So awesome.
Where are you guys finding staff today? You know, obviously we're in a very competitive market. I mean, Minnesota is less than 2% unemployment right now. So how are you guys attracting talent?
Go for that, Greg.
I'll answer that. Yeah, we do a lot with Indeed. We use resume search alerts on Indeed. But I tell you that probably the biggest place is through people we know, whether it's referrals from existing staff, referrals from what we get on Facebook. We like to take short videos of the office describing the position, put them on Facebook, talk about it a little bit, offer a referral reward, $1,000, $500, something like that, get people to share it. So look, the labor market right now is probably the toughest that I've ever seen. The problem that you have a lot of times when you run ads and you go through maybe some of the traditional sources, you end up with a really low quality talent pool because people that, like, if they don't have a job today, there's probably a really good reason for that. So when we're able to talk to people that maybe already working, but just looking for something better via referral, via Facebook, maybe just while you're out and about, some of our best hires have come while we're out and about in the community and we see somebody doing a really good job and we just go over and have a conversation with them. So I think, right now you've got to uncover every rock. You can't just be like one thing, and just have an effort going forward that I'm going to do everything I can to find as many candidates as possible, and hopefully if you find the right ones. But that's where we get the majority of ours.
Craig, are you doing multiple interviews, or does it depend on the position that you're interviewing for? Or do you feel you get a pretty good, sense of a person, in the first 30 minutes? What's kind of that process?
That's a good question. Look, I think years ago we would finish an interview saying, like, I'm hiring Todd. I just don't think you're cut out for this, and let's see how he fights for it or not, right? You can't really do that today. You do that today, they're going to go somewhere else. So I think once you start talking with them and realize this person's a good fit, you better turn your hat around and sell them and close them on the opportunity and get them to come aboard. Just don't do that too fast. Don't do that in the beginning just because you're desperate to make a hire or you need a warm body. Don't do that. But once you feel like, you know what, this person, I think they have what it takes, then you better close them. So typically our interviews are going to be the very first one. We're not going to have multiple and bring them back in and have them talk to staff. We're not doing all that stuff. Once I realize that they're a good fit, we're going to try to close them.
Awesome, thank you.
How about as far as your comp plan goes? You typically offer a base salary, hourly, plus commissions. Obviously you showed us your scale, but what are you finding is successful the most?
Yeah, I mean, the salaries, typically for someone's brand new to the business, never done it before, like Cam, his salary is $1,500, $1,500 a month. We pay up to maybe 2,000, something like that. And then for someone that we feel is just this person has got everything we're looking for, maybe up to 2,500, it would be their salary. And then we have a tiered commission plan, based off the volume that they write that goes along with that. It'll be all that'll be in that document that I'll send you guys. The key thing though, when it comes to salary plus commission, all that, be careful not to focus so much effort on the salary, because I don't really want people, like I have multiple people that make 6-figure incomes. They're not making that from their salary, right? The salary is just enough to give them some level of security. What I want them to get excited about is the opportunity to make big money with the commissions. And, we deal with people all the time like, well, in our area, we can't pay that kind of salary. Well, yes, you can. You can, if you do it the right way, if you communicate it and provide the opportunity the right way, you can. If you use that tool, especially, and you show somebody, look, here's how you make $80, $100, $200,000 a year. I mean, there's a lot of realtors out there selling houses in areas of the country that don't get any salary, and they're doing what they do. So don't get too hung up on that. I think you provide enough where they feel good about the fact that they have some security, and you get them to come aboard, but not so much where they don't have to do anything. If your salary is so high where the commissions are just kind of more like a bonus and they can make a living off the salary, then that's what you're going to get. You're going to get someone that they come in, they just suck that salary out of you, especially if you don't have any requirements. If you don't have any production requirements, they're just going to suck that out of you until you finally, get tired of it. So be careful about how you communicate that, but that's how we pay.
Craig, do you, we're kind of moving through COVID, and a question for Todd too. Are all of your staff, CSRs, producers in-house? What's your work at home thought process?
Good. That's a whole nother webinar. Look, I think that you need to be open to the idea that a lot of people have choices, right? So 5 of our producers are remote all over the country. And there's good and bad of that. There's good where maybe you can attract a much larger, group of people and find people maybe in a lower cost of living, where maybe it's easier with a lower salary. Accountability is really tough. I know a lot of people went home and worked during COVID and everything. And I think a lot of companies are now like, oh, hold up, we need to get these people back in here because they're not really doing what they need to be doing all day. Accountability is huge. So, we have several producers, they're on Zoom all day long, and some people feel like that's, we shouldn't be doing that, but it really, it's no different than being in the same room all day long. They're on a Zoom call all day long. And the sales manager can watch what's going on. They're all muted, so if they need to talk, they can unmute and talk with one another. But you gotta have accountability. I do think there's a huge place for remote, and you need to be thinking about that. And if you're equipped where you feel like you can do that, then start offering that, because if you don't, you're probably gonna lose out to some people that they may be able to go someplace else and work. But technology is an issue. Having an agreement in place for people that do come on and don't work out, getting the technology back. There's a lot of things that go in there. We got a ton of content on the platform. One of our coaches, Justin Slocum, he's been doing this for years, even before COVID. Almost his entire team, he's in Texas. He's got people all over the country. They're almost all remote. So he spent a lot of time teaching on that and a lot of the requirements and specifics around that. But generally speaking, I would encourage you to think, maybe a little more openly about, hey, how can I go out there and at least be able to make this something that we can offer? But then really spend some time working on the specifics too, because, when you make a hire and they don't work out and you don't have an agreement in place on the tech and how you get it back, that can really burn you. So there's a lot that goes into it, but I do think that going forward, people need to make it something that they can at least have the choice.
I know we're getting to the end here, but Todd, you want to weigh in on that real quick?
Sure. My best producer actually worked from home ever since COVID started. And like Craig mentioned, it's all about your systems and your accountability that you have set up. For them, it was more about the freedom, flexibility, and security. And instead of losing them to a competitor who would offer, the ability for them to work from home, Now, one of the things that I did differently, I guess you could say, with that producer is accountability to me for them meant you have to hit production numbers. It wasn't, making sure that they were at where they were at when they said they were there, because she had a kid that had some needs. So I had to be really flexible with, is she at her desk or not, right? But as long as the production numbers were there, I told her I didn't care. So you have to be very cautious about the flexibility. I recommend not giving anyone you don't know flexibility. It needs to be accountability 100%, or they're going to take advantage of you. And there was even some moments where she started taking advantage of the situation. Her numbers started dropping and I had to bring in some accountability. So it's definitely doable, and you can have really successful people doing it anywhere in the country, by the way, too. So I'm not sure how your minimum wage is there or your average wage is for a rock star, but you can go, anywhere in the country and hire, recruit away somebody and pay them, maybe a better wage than where you're at now. It's just making sure you have those systems in place, technology in place, like Craig mentioned.
Okay, thank you.
We are farmers. Bum, ba, dum, bum, 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 bum.